Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Cedarbrook, Pennsylvania. My name is Natalie. I'm 28 years old, and I just received a phone call that shattered everything I thought I knew about my place in my own family. But let me back up, because to understand why those words cut so deep, you need to understand who I've been for the last decade. I've been the fixer, the planner, the invisible engine that made every family Christmas look effortless and magical, while my mother, Patricia, stood at the center of it all, accepting compliments like she'd orchestrated everything herself. It started small. When I was 18, Mom asked if I could help out by coordinating the catering deposit. She said she was overwhelmed. I was young and eager to prove myself, so I said yes. The next year, she asked me to handle the venue booking because I was so organized. The year after that, it was the florist, the rentals, the photographer for our annual family portrait. By the time I was 25, I was managing the entire production. Guest lists, dietary restrictions, seating arrangements to keep feuding relatives apart, last-minute hotel bookings when someone's flight got canceled, emergency trips to 3 different stores because Aunt Helen's specific brand of cranberry sauce was suddenly essential. And through it all, my mother would smile at relatives and say things like, "Oh, it just comes together when you care enough," as if the Christmas magic materialized from thin air rather than my spreadsheets and credit card statements. My brother Derek? He'd show up an hour late, empty-handed, and Mom would light up like he'd brought the sun with him. "My baby's here," she'd exclaim, while I stood in the kitchen refilling gravy boats nobody thanked me for. I told myself it was fine. This was just how families worked. Someone had to be the responsible one. But here's what I couldn't explain away: the money. Over the years, I'd covered deposits that were never repaid, emergency expenses that were forgotten. That time Mom said she'd get me back for the $300 I spent when the rental company overcharged us. She never did. When I'd bring it up gently, carefully, she'd sigh like I was being petty. "It's Christmas, Natalie. Why are you making everything transactional?" Meanwhile, Derek borrowed $2,000 from her for a vacation last summer. She called it supporting him through a rough patch. I wish I could tell you I saw it clearly, but when you're deep in a pattern, you don't recognize it as a pattern. You just think it's life. Then came the phone call, 3 days before Christmas. I was at my apartment, finalizing the seating chart and double-checking the caterer's confirmation. My phone buzzed. "Mom." "Hey," I answered, already mentally running through my to-do list. I was just about to call. The florist confirmed the centerpieces, but they're running low on white roses, so I approved a substitution, Natalie. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "I've been thinking, this year, we're not celebrating Christmas with you." I actually laughed. "What?" "I mean, you don't need to come. Derek and I talked, and we think it would be less stressful for everyone if we kept it simple this year. Just immediate family." My chest went cold. I am immediate family. You know what I mean. Look, you always make things so complicated. The lists, the schedules, the constant reminders about money. It's exhausting for everyone. We just want a peaceful holiday for once. Before I tell you exactly what happened next, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, and felt something crack inside me. Not break, not yet, but crack like ice under pressure. So I'm uninvited? Don't be dramatic. I'm just saying you don't need to come. Plans are already set. Derek's handling things. She said it like she was doing me a favor, like she was liberating me from some burden I'd been complaining about. But I'd never complained. Not once in 10 years. I'd asked for repayment. I'd requested acknowledgement. But I'd never complained about doing the work. I'd just done it, because I thought that's what daughters did. "I have to go," I heard myself say. "Merry Christmas, Mom." I hung up before she could respond. For a long moment, I stood there motionless. My throat was closing. My hands were shaking. I looked at the seating chart on my kitchen table, the one I'd spent 3 hours perfecting, and I saw it clearly for the first time. My name wasn't on it. Not because I'd forgotten. because in my family, I wasn't a guest. I was the help. I sank onto my kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, and let that truth wash over me. For 10 years, I'd been auditioning for a role I already thought I had. I thought if I worked harder, gave more, anticipated every need, eventually my mother would see me the way she saw Derek, would treat me like a daughter instead of an obligation. But you can't earn a seat at a table that was never set for you. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too hollow for tears. Instead, I sat there until the afternoon light faded, and a single thought crystallized in my mind. I had no idea that what I would discover in the next 24 hours would finally show me exactly how much I'd been taken for and change everything. The night after that phone call, I didn't sleep. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every Christmas for the last 10 years. Every deposit, every emergency. Every time I'd handed over my credit card and been told, we'll settle up later. We never settled up. By 3 a.m, something shifted. The hurt didn't disappear, but it moved aside just enough to make room for a question. How much? How much had I actually spent? Not in vague estimates. In real numbers. I got out of bed, made coffee, and opened my laptop. I'm organized by nature. It's both my blessing and my curse, so I had records. Bank statements, email confirmations, screenshots of Venmo requests that were never fulfilled. The caterer this year, $800 deposit under my name. The venue rental, $650 under my name. The florist, $320 under my name. Equipment and table rentals, $400 under my name. Last year's emergency wine run when Mom forgot to order, $180. The year before, covering Derek's hotel room because he couldn't swing it, $240. I kept scrolling. The numbers kept climbing. By sunrise, I had a spreadsheet. Column A, expense. Column B, amount. Column C, repayment status. Column C was almost entirely blank. In 10 years, I had spent over $9,000 on family Christmas expenses that were never reimbursed. $9,000, not including my time, my energy, my weekends spent coordinating, my therapy bills trying to understand why I never felt good enough. And now I was uninvited, not needed, too complicated. I called my best friend, Morgan, at 7 a.m. She answered on the second ring, voice groggy but concerned. Nat? What's wrong? I need you to tell me I'm not crazy. I told her everything. The phone call. The spreadsheet, the decade of being used. Morgan listened. Then she asked one question that broke something open inside me. Would you accept this treatment from anyone else? A boss? A friend? A stranger? Or do you only accept it because she's your mother? I couldn't answer, because the answer was obvious. You already know what you need to do, Morgan said gently. The question is whether you'll let yourself do it. After we hung up, I sat with her words. My whole life, I'd been taught that family meant sacrifice, that loving your mother meant accepting whatever she gave you, even if what she gave was crumbs while your brother got the feast. But here's what I realized that morning: love is not the same as access, and sacrifice should never flow in only one direction. I opened my email. Then I opened my phone. The caterer, deposit under my name, paid with my card. Cancelable with 48 hours notice. The florist, same story. The venue, same story. The rentals, same story. My mother thought she didn't need me? Fine. But she also apparently forgot that she did need my money. My planning. My name on every single contract. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't going to make things easy. I wrote the emails. Polite, professional, firm. Due to changes in plans, I need to cancel my reservation. Please process the refund to my card on file. Within 2 hours, everything was canceled. Over $2,000 would be returned to my account within the week. Then I did something I'd never done before. I took action for myself. I sent a message to our extended family group chat, the one Mom used to coordinate attendance and guilt people into coming. Hi everyone. Just wanted to let you know that this year I'm hosting a small Christmas gathering at my apartment instead of attending the main family event. It will be low-key, just good food, good company, no pressure. If anyone wants to stop by, my door is open. No obligations. Whatever you choose, I hope you have a peaceful holiday. Love, Natalie. I put my phone down. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. From something that felt dangerously close to power. Within an hour, responses started coming in. Aunt Helen, honey, we were honestly dreading the big production. Can we bring anything? Cousin Marcus, wait, you're not going to your mom's? Honestly, same energy. What time should we come? My Uncle Ben, my dad's brother. Natalie, I've been coming to those things for years, mainly because of you. Text me your address. One by one, the relatives I'd spent a decade serving quietly admitted the truth. They didn't come for my mother's perfect Christmas. They came because I was there. Because I remembered their allergies and their favorite desserts and their kids' names. Because I made them feel welcome. My mother never did. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mom. What is this about hosting something at your apartment? I thought we discussed that you weren't needed this year. I read her message 3 times. Not needed. Even now, she couldn't see how those words landed. I typed back, you're right. I'm not needed there. But I'm wanted here. Have a nice Christmas, Mom. I turned my phone to silent. The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach, but a strange lightness in my chest. For the first time, I wasn't managing anyone else's holiday. For the first time, I was allowed to want my own. I was done performing. It was time to just be. The hours that followed my message to the family group chat became the most revealing of my entire life. Relatives I barely spoke to started reaching out privately. Not to pressure me, but to share. Cousin Marcus texted, "Hey, so I probably shouldn't say this, but your mom called me yesterday asking if I could handle the catering situation. Apparently the order was canceled." She sounded panicked. I hadn't told anyone I'd canceled those orders. I'd just done it. Let the chips fall. Aunt Helen called. "Natalie, honey, is everything okay? Your mother left me a voicemail saying you sabotaged Christmas and that I should tell you to apologize. What on earth happened?" I told her the truth. All of it. The phone call. The 10 years of unpaid labor. The spreadsheet. The $9,000. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Oh, sweetheart. I had no idea. I always wondered why you looked so tired at those things. I thought you were just stressed." I was stressed. I was stressed because I was running a production for free while being treated like the problem. Here's what I learned in the days before Christmas. When you stop performing, other people start seeing clearly. Cousin Derek, my brother, texted me exactly once. "Thanks for screwing up Christmas. Real mature, Natalie." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. He'd never once asked what I needed. Never offered to help. Never acknowledged that I existed outside of my usefulness. And now he was angry because his comfortable holiday was inconvenienced. But the relatives who'd actually paid attention, they started comparing notes. Aunt Helen mentioned to Uncle Ben that she'd never actually seen my mother cook anything, it was always caterers. Uncle Ben mentioned to Marcus that he'd once overheard Mom telling someone I was obsessive about Christmas planning, like it was a personality flaw rather than a family survival mechanism. Marcus texted me, "Nat, I think people are starting to figure out who's been doing the work this whole time. Have you ever felt that moment when a truth you've been carrying alone suddenly becomes visible to others? It's strange. It doesn't feel like victory. It feels like grief. Grief for all the years you carried it silently, wishing someone would just notice." The cracks in my mother's narrative began spreading. Not because I campaigned against her, I didn't. I just stopped covering for her. And without my labor, without my money, without my presence smoothing over every rough edge, the seams started showing. I spent the 2 days before Christmas doing something I'd never done, preparing for myself. I cleaned my apartment. I bought groceries I actually wanted. I made a playlist of songs I loved, not songs that were crowd pleasers. I called Morgan and asked if she wanted to come over. She said yes. I texted the relatives who'd reached out and gave them my address. No seating chart. No emergency backup plans. No spreadsheets. Just space for whoever wanted to be there. Christmas Eve, Mom called again. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was a masterclass in manipulation. "Natalie, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but you've put me in a terrible position. The caterer called asking where to deliver the food, and I had to tell them there must be a mistake. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? You need to fix this. Call me back. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't asking what happened. She was demanding I clean up the mess, the same mess that only existed because she'd taken me for granted. I saved the voicemail, not for revenge, for evidence, for the next time I doubted myself. Christmas morning arrived quiet and soft. Light snow outside my window. Coffee brewing. A small tree I decorated myself, not because it photographed well, but because I liked how it looked. Morgan came over around 10. Aunt Helen and Uncle Ben arrived with a honey-baked ham. Marcus showed up with his girlfriend, who'd heard the whole story and wanted to meet the legend. Even my dad's elderly aunt, Great Aunt Rose, came. She squeezed my hand at the door and said, "About time you stopped letting her run you ragged, sweetheart." We ate. We talked. We laughed. Nobody asked me to manage anything. At one point, I stepped away to refill drinks, and I caught myself waiting for something to go wrong. For someone to need me to fix a crisis. For my phone to buzz with some catastrophe. But nothing happened. Because without the performance, there was no crisis to manage. Just people being together, enjoying each other. That afternoon, Aunt Helen pulled me aside. "Your mother tried calling me this morning. Twice. Apparently, it's just her and Derek at her house. Some of the food never showed up, and Derek burned the backup dinner rolls." She said it gently, not gloating. Just informing. Knowing my mother's carefully curated Christmas was falling apart should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like balance. Like consequence finally catching up with someone who'd been outrunning it for years. I wondered, would she ever understand what she lost? Or would she just find someone else to blame? The weeks after Christmas moved differently. I'd expected some dramatic confrontation. A family meeting where Mom demanded answers and I delivered a righteous speech. That's how it works in movies, right? Real life is messier and quieter. What actually happened was this. My mother didn't call for 3 weeks after Christmas. Radio silence. I later learned she was busy managing the narrative, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd had a breakdown and needed space. That she was giving me time to come to my senses. Aunt Helen told me this with an eye roll. She's telling everyone you're fragile. Meanwhile, you're over here hosting lovely dinners and looking healthier than I've seen you in years. She wasn't wrong. In January, I started sleeping better. I didn't realize how much energy I'd been spending on anticipating everyone else's needs until I stopped. My jaw unclenched. The tension headaches disappeared. I started actually enjoying weekends instead of dreading the inevitable family summons. I joined a pottery class, something I'd wanted to do for years, but never had time for. I made new friends who knew nothing about my family history, who liked me for me rather than for what I could provide. I got a promotion at work, finally able to focus, because my brain wasn't constantly running logistics for someone else's life. I built what I'd never had, a life that was mine. In early February, Derek texted, "Mom's really struggling. You should call her." I didn't respond. 2 weeks later, Mom finally reached out herself. "Natalie, we need to talk. Things have been difficult since Christmas. I've had time to think, and I realize we need to clear the air. Why don't you come over for Sunday dinner? We can start fresh." I read her message sitting at my pottery wheel, hands covered in clay. Start fresh. Like the last 10 years could just be wiped away. Like the $9,000, the uninvitation, the years of being treated like staff rather than family, all of it could be erased with Sunday pot roast. I waited 2 days before responding. Not out of spite, but because I needed to be sure my answer came from peace, not anger. "Hi, Mom. I'm glad you've had time to think. I have too. I hope you're doing well. I'm not able to come to Sunday dinner or return to how things were before. What I needed from our relationship wasn't logistical. It was respect, acknowledgement, and fairness. Those things can't be started fresh without being addressed. I wish you well, but I'm choosing to focus on relationships where I don't have to prove my value. I hope you find what you're looking for. I didn't say she was evil. I didn't list her crimes. I just told the truth." Her response came within an hour. "So you're just abandoning your family? After everything I've done for you?" I raised you. I gave you a home. And this is the thanks I get? Derek was right, you've changed. You've become hard and selfish. I hope you're happy with your choices. I read it once. Then I put my phone away. She still had Derek. She still had her house, her other relatives, her life. I didn't take everything from her. I just stopped letting her take everything from me. A month later, through the family grapevine, I heard that Mom was struggling with the estrangement. That she'd started telling people she didn't understand what happened. That she'd been asking relatives to talk sense into Natalie. Nobody took her up on it. The ones who mattered already understood. Great Aunt Rose sent me a card that said, "Proud of you for knowing your worth." Some people never learn it. You did. I framed it. So after everything you've heard, if you are standing where I am now, with a mother asking you to pretend the last decade of being used was just a misunderstanding, would you return to the table that never had a seat for you and call it forgiveness? Or would you build your own table and call it self-respect? I chose my own table, and it's full of people who actually want me there. Here's what I know now that I didn't know a year ago. Love doesn't mean access. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It makes you visible to yourself, finally, after years of disappearing into other people's needs. I still think about my mother. I still grieve the relationship I thought we had, the mother I wished she could be. Some nights, I wonder if I should call. If maybe she's changed. If I'm being too hard. But then I remember her voice on that phone call. Not needed. And I remember that I didn't take anything from her. I just stopped volunteering to be taken from. There's a version of this story where I reconcile with my family, where Mom apologizes, where we cry and hug, and everything goes back to normal. Maybe that version exists for other people. For me, peace looks different. Peace looks like a quiet apartment with a small tree. It looks like weekends without dread and spreadsheets only for things I actually care about. It looks like knowing that if I never plan another family Christmas, that doesn't make me a bad daughter. It makes me someone who finally learned the difference between love and obligation. My mother called me difficult because I asked to be valued. My brother called me selfish because I stopped being convenient. But the people who stayed, they call me Natalie. Just Natalie. No performance required. And for the first time in my life, that's enough. And that's Natalie's story. A woman who spent 10 years building someone else's perfect Christmas, only to discover she was never meant to be a guest at the table she set. But here's the thing about people like Natalie. They don't break. They wake up. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't fight for a seat that was never offered. She simply stopped showing up where she wasn't valued and started building something real. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever been the one doing the work while someone else took the credit, drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to walk away from family to find peace? I read every single comment, and this community, we get it. We understand what it means to choose yourself after years of being overlooked. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss a story. Every week, we share real emotional journeys about betrayal, boundaries, and the quiet power of walking away. And if you need another story right now, something to remind you that you're not alone, click the video on your screen. I picked it just for you. Until next time, remember, you are not difficult for wanting to be treated with respect. You are not selfish for refusing to be used. And you are never too old to stop performing and start living. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.